Welcome to Beyond Rent, the property management podcast brought to you by Rent Manager. Each episode, we sit down with an expert to talk industry updates, tech solutions, and top tips for those in the property management space. And now, let's get to the conversation and go Beyond Rent.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Beyond Rent. We all know that insurance is important and we count on it to help us when there's an issue. However, the work doesn't end once the claim is submitted, right? There's a lot of other things that can happen, and using a public adjuster might be what you want to do to help maximize these claims that you're going through. To learn more and help debunk some common myths around public adjusters, we have Andy from AllCity Adjusting joining us today. Andy, welcome to Beyond Rent.
Joe, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me again. I think this is the second time, so I really appreciate it and appreciate being in the studio with you.
Yeah, thanks for visiting the office and being in studio. Like I said, this is your second time around. The first time we kind of just really dove into the whole public adjuster, how things work, how things flow, and definitely recommend people going back and checking out that episode. But today we're going to kind of take a different angle and kind of do this debunking of myths. So I'm really excited for this. I think it's going to be fun. We have 5 common myths that we want to tackle today. But before we tackle those myths, I'd like to get to know you a little bit better. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us our audience what you're all about.
Yeah, my name is Andy Gurczak. I'm the CEO and founder of AllCity Adjusting, where we represent clients, homeowners, investors, and landlords against insurance company as private adjusters, or also known as public adjusters. In the states we're licensed in, currently we're in over 40 states, pretty much grew our portfolio with our clients, and we're just trying to help our clients recover every penny that they're owed, that they deserve.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for that quick intro. Like you said, public private adjuster, 40 states. You're putting your hands, and your team is putting your hands on a lot of claims. You see a lot of data. You kind of know the nuances that go into this, what I think is a little bit nuanced of an industry that not everyone's taking advantage of, right? So you're a true expert on this area. So I really say let's jump right in. Let's start tackling these common myths, because I think this is really what people need to understand about what's happening in this space. So let's just jump right in. Myth number 1 is public adjusters just inflate claims, meaning the claim starts out XYZ and you're just really trying to bolster it into something maybe it isn't, to throw that number as high as you can get it. So yeah, what's not right about that?
We just inflate numbers. That's a good one. So our estimates and everything we present, whether it's personal property, whether it's the structure, whether we're handling loss of income, there's nothing to inflate because we have to support it. If we just throw stuff at the insurance, obviously they're not going to pay it because the burden of proof is on the insured. So anything we present to the insurance company, we have to have supportive documents proving it. Now, there's carriers like we just did it's a large fire, it's a residential fire. In the estimate, there were some questionable items whether it should be totally taken down or it can be repaired. Well, when we sat down with the team, we said we're going to put for replacement. Now, when the adjusters come out and we discuss it with them, would we go and say, well, can this be repaired? Yeah, we could come to an agreement, but we wanted to start higher because this particular carrier cuts down. So if we were at, like, let's just say we present, hey, there's $50,000 of damages, they'll come back and say, well, it's only $10,000. They do that on purpose. So this specific carrier, there's a couple of them. And so we know how they operate, and by knowing how they operate. But again, we have to present stuff that if it was presented in front of court or in front of jury, we can support it that this is why. And there's a good reasoning for it. And then there's always both two sides, right? When we come to a conclusion, but again, we can't just inflate and throw stuff. Now, do some adjusters do that? And some PAs, 100%. That's not what, again, there's storm chasers, contractors that have PA licenses, but there's legit public adjuster companies like ours that do this for a living and that have to do it right. Again, we have licenses with every state. So we're governed by the states. So again, the state, we can be reported to the state. And, if we're not doing stuff right, we can lose our license and lose, our business. So we're really particular about what we do, but inflating numbers would be not one of them.
Yeah, that's really interesting, kind of even where you started that and where you ended it. The fact that these are, it's a licensed role, right? So it's not like you're out there, it's not fly by night. There's regulations in place. There's protocols that you have to follow. And this whole idea of burden of proof, when I think about how things happen with insurance claim on a personal side, a lot of times I feel a little bit like I don't have a lot of control over what's going on. I'm kind of told how much damage there is. I'm told how much it's going to cost to repair. And I kind of have to trust some of this because I just don't have all the insights and all the knowledge to really question some of these things. But you have that burden of proof by the insured, you said. So the insured has to come in and say, hey, it is $50,000 worth of damage, and here's the breakdown of how we're going to get there, and this is why we even need to replace it versus maybe repair it.
Correct. And that burden of proof, once we're hired, gets transferred from the client, the insured, to us. So we have to prove everything. And you have to think about it. If we were just to, we take a claim and we just throw up an estimate and just to try getting something and then just cut it down, we're just hurting the client. I mean, we're not benefiting anyone. And let's say we're not hired from the beginning. Let's say you called us 2 months into the claim and you already have an estimate. Well, now we have to look at it and say, okay, can we bring value to Joe? Can we bring extra value? Can we bring more money on that estimate? Is there more damage? So if we take that claim on, we have to know that we're going to bring value so we can, because we're all on contingency. So just throwing up numbers doesn't do you any good.
No, that's really helpful, that contingency piece as well, right? You have to do a good job and you have to help them get the full amount they're owed, right? Because you have the insights and the knowledge of the industry, or there's really nothing in it for your company either, right? You have to be mutually beneficial.
Correct. If we throw up $100,000 estimate that has no bearing, like that doesn't make any sense, and they just, they're not going to pay. What good? We didn't do any good to you. We didn't bring any value, and we didn't make any money as a company. So now everything that we write, that we present to the insurance company, has supportive documents. Even if it's loss of income, there's supportive documents in it. If we're inventorying the entire property, let's say the entire business burnt down here, and we have to inventory each item, there's going to be a backup of where you can purchase this item, how much does it cost. Everything's backed up and has support to it.
That's perfect. So I think we can say myth number one, debunked, right? So public adjusters are not there to inflate the claim. They're there to, I'd say, legitimize it, make sure that it's thorough, complete, and that the insured really is made whole.
The word we use, Joe, is fully indemnify the insured.
There you go.
So we're trying to fully indemnify the insured. Make sure that you get fully indemnified, you get everything. You paid a premium, and you're owed to be fully indemnified.
That's right. Perfect. All right, let's jump to myth number 2. You only need a public adjuster for big losses. So there's all types of different claims that can happen. And this myth is, hey, if you have a really big loss, you need somebody to come in and help with on the adjuster side, but small claims, don't worry about, you can just handle yourselves. How do you feel about that one?
So our company specializes in large losses. So usually losses that range from 100,000 and up. But because we've built such a big client base with investors and landlords, even as small claims, they'll call us on any claim, whether it's small or something, 20,000, 30,000. And even those claims we'll take. We just had a big investor who owns a large portfolio of Airbnbs, and they got hit with a large storm. And, that's probably not something, if he called us with one property, we'd handle as a new client. But because he had been with us and had other claims, we handle all those. Those were all about 20, 30,000. And it took about 3 months to settle each, to actually get each claim paid. And he saw how long we fought, and we talk about it all the time. And again, even on small claims, it's 100% worth having a public adjuster. But a public adjuster, a good one, will tell you in the beginning if there's value. If you called me, Joe, and said, Andy, we just had damage. Our whole basement's got 2 feet of water. Everything's damaged. It's 3,000 square feet. And the first thing I would ask, Joe, can I see your policy? Do you have a limit? It's water backup. Oh, I have a $15,000 limit. Well, there's no need for us, because you're going to get maxed out your policy limit. We can't bring any value. I can't raise your policy limit for you unless we can now go in and investigate and say, well, it's not water backup. You actually had a pipe burst, so it's under coverage A. So now we could come in and bring value. So the first thing we're going to do as a company is do our due diligence to make sure that there's value that we're going to bring. But even on small claims, you want to bring a public adjuster. I mean, why not? To at least review the claim for you, it does not hurt.
Yeah, and I love that comment about the knowing your limitations, right? And understanding your policy. And I'd say on the business side, maybe people are paying a little more attention than on the personal side. But still in a business, you have a lot of different properties, maybe some different policies. You may not always know what your policy does or doesn't cover. And getting into that nuance right there, that's a great example of, well, where is the limitation? Where does it fall within the policy? You may have a higher limitation if we dig in a little bit deeper and make sure we're applying it correctly to that situation. So, like you said, you specialize in what you would say are larger losses, right? 100,000 plus, but there can be a big advantage to working with a company like yours on all claims, even those smaller claims, just to make sure you're getting all of the right indemnification, as you had mentioned prior.
Correct. I mean, if you have a claim and it's 15,000, we found another 10,000 in that claim, adding another 10,000 to your pocket. That's a lot of money, especially for a small investor, like every penny counts, especially in today's times. You're paying a premium, and those premiums are going up. I think, for example, in Illinois, State Farm just announced that like 37% increase on all State Farm policies. So they're only going to go up. If you're looking to switch insurance companies, they're all the same. They're all raising their premiums. So when people call us and say, they're going to raise my rates, listen, they're going to raise your rates no matter what. Even if it's small claim, file it. If you have a good public adjuster, they'll get every penny that you're owed, and you'll be in a great situation.
Yeah, and it really is important to get every penny, like you said. There's a lot of pressure in real estate. We know what's going on with real estate values. We know what's going on with insurance and the increases there. You have to really be on your game. And one of the things we talk about quite often on the podcast are the property management companies that are doing third-party management. A lot of times those owners, those investors are looking to the property management company to help guide them through situations like this. And if you're an investor and you have a property that's going through a big loss, that may actually be an opportunity for you to reevaluate and decide if you even still want to own that property. And as a third-party manager, that may put you at risk to lose a property that you're managing because of that loss, where if they can get all the money out that they need, if they can repair that property back to original form, that's a good opportunity to save and maybe even increase rents long-term because you're adding value to the property and by using an adjuster like yourself.
Correct. And we've become a vendor for so many management companies, and the benefit is think about it. A management company is a management company. They manage properties. They don't manage claims. It's entire, like, we adjust claims, we handle claims. We don't manage properties. Now, I do personally myself because me and my wife have a portfolio of properties. But again, public adjusters are public adjuster companies. They're adjusting claims. They're negotiating. They're bringing value. They're not managing portfolios. So again, and right before we started recording, we talked about a client, a management company that we work with, and they advised their client to hire us. Again, they were trying to, this is a new client. So in the beginning, they were doing it. The management company was handling the claim for the investor. And the stuff they told the investor when we got involved later, the adjuster was like, well, they already said this, so I'm not paying for this. And they already said this, and I'm not paying for this. And this was and it just chopped money from the estimate left and right. And then they wouldn't want to pay him loss of income. The insurance company was requesting, this was already going on 4 months. They were requesting taxes and K9 and just a bunch of documents that's not needed from this carrier in their policy for loss of income. They just need the leases. So it took a while, and eventually when we got involved, got all those paid. So 3 units times 4 months, it added up to a lot of money for that client. So yes, it's everyone has their thing, and public adjuster is just part of the team, just like a good agent, just like a good attorney, good management company. It's there for a reason.
Absolutely. And that's actually a really good segue into myth number 3, which is my contractor can handle the insurance. And I think we could easily sub out contractor for property management company for my uncle, right? Yes. It's like anybody, right? Everyone feels like they know somebody that can help them through the claims process. Why is that a myth?
So first of all, in most states, only a public adjuster, a licensed public adjuster, can negotiate the claim, discuss policy. It strictly says contractors are prohibited from negotiating claims, discussing policy, but they do it anyways, right? Now, there's some states that you can be both a public adjuster and a contractor. For example, Illinois is one of them, which we feel is a conflict of interest, but they allow it, which is fine. We adjust claims. We don't do any construction. When someone says, Andy, do you have a contractor? If we know someone or another client that's worked with someone, we're more than happy to say, hey, this is a good contractor. We don't have any vendors. We don't deal with any of them because that's not our line of business. Like, we don't want to get into that. Like, hey, we're involved with some contractors. We're a public adjusting company. We know what we do. And a contractor does construction. I own the construction company, and I'll tell you, I was a contractor. I focused on the construction. I didn't focus on policy. I wasn't into negotiating my, if I give you a $5,000 price for the bathroom, I wasn't in there negotiating, can you do it for 45? Like, I was just giving you a price. And if you took it, we did the job. Negotiating a claim and writing an estimate and reading a policy, interpreting a policy is a whole different skill level. Now, at AllCity, most of our employees and our adjusters and estimators was in some kind of construction background. So we have that background, knowing construction, and that it's a huge benefit. But yes, a contractor is a contractor. And again, most investors and management companies have their own contractors, right? So wouldn't you want to get the claim paid and then get estimates separately from your contractors? Instead of your contractor knowing, oh, Joe's getting $100,000, so Joe, we're going to take all this $100,000, right? Wouldn't you want to get estimates from separate contractors and you actually know what you're receiving? So you have to consider that because a lot of people let the insurance companies just bring in vendors and then they take the entire claim over. And then the client then is out of pocket. Hey, you're paying your deductible. Hey, you're paying this to, now Joe wants to go from carpets to, better flooring. Now you're paying that up, even though there's enough money. So let the public adjuster negotiate the claim and get you paid, and let the contractor then give you an estimate and do the job.
Yeah, that's really good insight. And that whole idea of separating that work out. And I agree. I do think there's a big conflict of interest to allow the contractor to negotiate the claim, knowing that they're the ones that are going to be doing the work or potentially doing the work, right? We talked earlier about inflating the claim. If anyone's going to do that, it'll be the contractor, right? Because they're just trying to get as many dollars as they can to create higher margin. And not that everyone's going to take advantage of a system like that, but it definitely allows that gray area to exist.
We get those calls a lot where someone had a fire and they would call and say, we had a fire. The contractor gave us an estimate of $300,000. The insurance is at $100,000. Okay, well, what's going on? Well, he said it's going to take he or she said $300,000. Then we'll break it down. Well, he's just saying it's going to be $300,000. Okay, just because you say it's going to be $300,000, like we're looking at pictures, we're like, no, we're kind of more on the insurance side. This is around $150,000 maybe, but definitely not $300,000 worth of damage. Now the contractor's looking at like, well, that part of the house is old. We might as well just remodel all of it. Okay, well, that's not part of the claim. Remember, they owe for what was damaged by the peril. They don't owe you for anything extra that you want to upgrade on the house. So a lot of people don't understand that. And contractors, again, they're just writing an estimate. They're not supporting it because it's not their job.
That's right. And understanding everyone's job in that is really important.
Correct. We don't get into management. We don't get into construction because that's not what we do.
Yeah.
We do what we're good at, and it's getting our clients paid top dollar for everything they're owed.
You had mentioned that most of your employees, or maybe even all of them, have a background in construction, contractor type work, so they understand kind of what's happening there. Is that common with public adjusters? Do you see that, or are they coming from other areas as well?
I think a lot come from the construction, or kind of they were on the insurance side. Now they've come over to work at the private sector. And then a lot of them have some kind of construction background. Maybe they were roofers, some kind of general contractors. A lot of, even the older adjusters we meet on site, the ones that are still left, that like have been with insurance companies for a while, and there's not many, but they're the best ones. They'll have some kind of background in construction, which is great because now we're talking on the same level. Like, what's it take to put this wall back? Like, we know because it's construction, right? You're not dealing with a 20-year-old that says, well, my program says I can do this and you can do this. Well, that's a program. There's more to it. So, yes, a lot do come back from the construction background. And those are probably on the insurance side, and on our side, it's the easiest then to work with because we both are on the same level.
Yeah, and I work for a technology company. I'd love to say that software and technology can answer all questions and solve all problems, but we know it's not true, especially when it comes to construction. I mean, every property is different. Every building is different. Every situation, every level of damage is different, right? And you need somebody with expertise to look at it and really understand what it's going to take.
And that's the thing with adjusting claims on site. It's hard to replace with, I think AI is great in that part and reviewing estimates and doing a lot because we've played around with it. But I think actually getting an accurate estimate of the damages, being on site and feeling the material and seeing the material and seeing what's built, that's where you need that personal person on there and someone with knowledge of some kind of construction or estimating background.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I think we can consider myth number 3 debunked as well, as far as their contractor handling the insurance. And like you said, in most areas, they're prohibited from doing it,
Correct.
let alone not being equipped to be able to do it. All right, so myth number 4, the insurance company's adjuster will take care of me. So this is a little similar to the last myth, but diving even deeper into the actual insurance company's adjuster. Help us understand that one.
So the easiest way to understand it is the insurance company has their own adjuster, their own vendors, their agent, everyone that's getting paid and is working for the insurance company. How can they be representing them, looking out for them, but then representing you? That's like going, that's literally like going to court and being represented, defendant plaintiffs are being represented by the same attorney. It's literally the same. The adjuster's looking out, especially these days. They're looking out. They have guidelines. They have all this stuff that they don't pay for, that they can't do. They're looking out for the insurance company. They're not looking out for the client. I mean, there was just a hearing in the Senate against State Farm and Allstate for this reason of how claims are being handled and the bad faith that's happening. The whole point of them and how they're getting trained is because if they can save $200 and that's on 200,000 claims a year, think about how much money they're saving. So they're going to look at the bottom dollar again. Whereas we're coming in and looking out, how can we bring every penny, like the most to our client? Mm-hmm. That's the difference. So you have to look at it that way. You have to kind of step back and say, yeah, everyone he's bringing in that you will call the agent and you say, hey, I just had this loss. And they'll say, oh, I actually have a list. I have a couple contractors and I actually know the adjuster. Oh, they all know each other. It's a coincidence that they all know each other, right? Okay, so someone's got to look out for the policyholder themselves.
Well, and like you're out there trying to maximize the claim, to ensure that indemnification that we talked about earlier happens. The insurance adjuster, right, on the insurance company's side, I think they're doing the opposite. And again, whether or not they are being malicious or anything like that or predatory, but their job is to say, well, what was the damage and what's the smallest dollar amount that we can pay that meets the policy's requirements, right? And help us move on, right? I mean, that's actually their job, right? They're trying to, and they would probably use words like efficiency
Correct.
or accuracy and things like that, but they're aiming for that lowest dollar.
And it's funny, they say that's the words they use, efficiency and stuff. Yes, they're definitely not teaching them, hey, we're going to screw over the policyholder. We're going to undercut, they're not going to use those words when they're training the adjusters. And I'm aware, of the process because I was an IA, so I know that area and what they're teaching. They're just going to say, well, we don't pay for these 20 items. When you go there, look for this and this, but don't look there. Like, again, there's ways they're doing it where they're brainwashing these young adjusters that when they meet us, it's like, I can't pay for this. They told me we don't pay for this. Well, what do you mean you don't pay for this? It's damage. Well, I got to go to management, and then the manager's got to go to another. They just find ways to delay the claim, prolong it, and hope the insured just says, screw it, just pay me and I'm done.
And how often is that really happening? And again, I always, from a personal standpoint, think about the business side and the personal side. In many personal situations, that person needs that money fast, right? There is damage. They're under a timeline. If it's damage to their home or car or whatever, they need to have those things repaired quickly. So they are almost compelled to say yes. Now, on the business side, are you finding that there's similar pressures where they feel like I need to get this money in fast so I can get this property back to whole?
That's a great question. You are right. In different, so resident, let's just say you're a residential homeowner. You have a family, kids. You're in definitely a crunch. Kids are going to school. Kids are in sports. You care less. You care more about, just being in that house, which is putting pressure. Your wife saying, hey, we got to get this house. And you're trying to hurry up the process because you just want your kids. You don't care. Excuse me. But then what happens is as you go into a claim, you're like, well, now we're paying out of pocket and the house is still not done. And now they're cutting our rent because the contractor's delaying the claim. And all of a sudden we're getting a call because the house is not done. The contractor's not showing up because him and insurance are having a dispute about what's owed and what they paid for, what they didn't pay for. So yes, for example, the fire we just, when you asked me, we were doing Ohio, we just had a fire in Columbus. That was an attorney that called and that was his main question. Andy, how long is this going to take? It's already been a month. We have 2 kids. So we have, I have to be honest with the client and say, well, it's not going to be a month. It's not going to be 2. It might take up to 3 months to negotiate and settle a fair claim. So you have to be, I want to prepare you mentally and your wife so you know exactly how long it's going to take, and it might even take longer because that's their process. The longer they can delay, they know the insured will eventually cave in. Now, on the investor side, landlord side, it's much different because you have a property. You're covered for loss of income. So we usually explain, listen, give us, we'll take 3-4 months. You're going to get paid for those 4 months of losing income. So nothing's happening. You're still getting your rental income. We're negotiating a claim for max settlement. So the investors are super happy. The landlords are super happy. They're not losing anything. They're getting money. And plus then once the claim's negotiated, they're getting a ton of money on top of that. Now that loss of rent is going to continue until the building's done. And we usually can get that up front for many months. So it's a different, yes, investors and business owners have more time. It's easier. That's why they're majority of our clients. Whereas homeowners are in a different scenario, especially with families and stuff. It's tougher for them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Is there ever a scenario where a business has a policy where loss of income is not included? And I ask that question because I just wonder how many that are listening to this need to go review their policies and ensure they have loss of income in.
So one of the things we offer our services, which is free, when clients call us or send us emails, is we interpret and review policies for free for investors all the time, even for residential homeowners. And yes, not only loss of income. I mean, there's so many coverages that should be and are very cheap, very affordable, that brings so much value that people don't know about. Or, a lot of insurance companies used to have these as mandatory. Like they were always, if you bought a policy from us, all this coverage was included. Well, now it's not. And the agent doesn't tell you, and now you don't have insurance, you don't have coverage for this, you don't have coverage for this, you have an exclusion for this. So yes, business income is a coverage that technically is not always included. And with State Farm, we see that a lot where you have, property coverage, but you have no business income.
Well,
but then that changes the whole scenario, right?
Yeah,
because now if you had a fire, now I can't say, Joe, well, give us 3-4 months, we're going to negotiate, you'll be super happy, and you'll get your loss of rent. Well, now you won't get loss of rent.
That's right.
That income won't be there, so you're losing that. So it's a different scenario.
Well, that tip alone is worth watching this episode, right? Because going through and evaluating your policies, know what you're covered for. Insurance is one of those things. You want it to be the lowest premium possible, right? In most people's minds. But the reality is, are you getting the coverage that you want if something were to happen? Because once something happens, like you said, you can't change what the policy says. You can only help up to the limitations of the policy. So if you have a bad policy and you don't know it, you're sitting there at risk every day, all day.
Correct. And so you have to really understand, if I'm paying $3,000 a month and there's these other coverages here that are amazing, that really, if something happens, they'll help out, and they're only a couple dollars, but you don't even know about them. And that's just hurting. Now, again, if this company offers the same kind of coverage, but it's double the premium, well, that I understand, right? This company's maybe worse at handling claims, but we'll still get it done with them. Mm-hmm. Right. But the endorsement, and now you have to also look at exclusions, because there's so many exclusions in policy people don't know about that you can go into. I mean, exclusions for, metal being damaged on a roof, metal for exclusion for matching, just a bunch of exclusions that people aren't aware of. And unfortunately, even agents don't know their policies that they sell. So, and now a homeowner can go buy their own policy online and be an agent. So,
yeah. So you talked about exclusions, and I wonder a little bit, because I've heard that some policies are now excluding claims that most people think are common, like roof damage. Is roof damage one of those things that a lot of policies are looking to exclude because of the amount of claims that they've had over the years?
I don't think they'll exclude them. What they're doing is making the deductible so high. So they'll have a deductible for any other peril, and then they'll have a windstorm deductible, which is 2%, 3% of property, or 10,000, 15 for residential. So they're raising deductibles, the deductible so high that it doesn't make sense. If you call us and you have a commercial roof, and we look at it, and your deductible is 100,000 for that windstorm. The roof the roof alone is going to be 100. It's not. What are you going to file? You're not going to get anything paid out.
Yeah.
So yes, the exclusions on roofs are becoming more and more. Some insurance companies offer endorsements, so they won't pay for it, but you can buy endorsements that if something does happen to that roof, this is covered. This is covered. But I don't think they'll remove roofs. They're just making it more of that. It doesn't become this. Most people, what's happened now is you'll see signs. You'll drive through a neighborhood and there's on every corner it says free roof, free roof. Well, no roof is free, right? You paid a premium, so it's not like it was free.
Yeah.
And then second of all, most hail that we have here, as example, in the Midwest, is so small that the damage is very minor. Now, the insurance companies are like, okay, this people are calling, this whole neighborhood's calling from a hailstorm 2 years ago because there's some storm chase. So they're just trying, I think, to eliminate all that. Which I actually think is a good thing. A lot of people will call with maintenance issues, and maintenance is not a covered loss. Even commercial unit owners will call us and say, "Hey, we had this roofer on our thing. I think we should file a claim." We look at photos, we're like, "This roof should have been replaced 20 years ago." It's not that storm from 2 months ago. It's 20, 30 years of wear and tear that should have been replaced.
Yeah. Well, and to me, that makes sense as well. Like, we don't want anyone filing claims and being successful in maintenance repairs because that just drives up costs for everybody, right? We want to be covered when there's a real loss. So that's great. Well, myth number 5, we've talked about this a little bit, but let's dive deeper on it. So myth number 5 is hiring a public adjuster delays the process. We've talked a little bit about the timing, but let's go a little bit deeper. Let's talk about the process and how using an adjuster can impact it.
Correct. So let me go back to that Senate hearing that was just, if anyone wants to YouTube this, they could just YouTube Senate hearing Allstate or State Farm. It's all there. And then they talk about this claim that's been ongoing for 2 years from the last hurricane in Florida. And here's the short story. The first adjuster came out from Allstate, said he was going to pay for the total loss. The whole home has to be knocked down. Well, Allstate said, as soon as he put his report in, they said, "Hey, you know what? We're gonna deport you to it. We're gonna send you to a different claim, and you're off this claim." He said, "Okay," so he's off. New adjuster comes in, said he's only paying like $20,000, whatever. Then they send out an engineer. Then they send out another engineer, and they're prolonging this, and it's going over a year. Poor lady. Then they send out like their most qualified large loss adjusters, which, as I explained, those are adjusters we like to work with because they've been in construction, they've been estimating. It's easy to talk to. It's easy to discuss. Well, this adjuster came out, looked at the estimate from the public adjuster and said, "This is accurate. This is definitely, maybe there's a couple of things that shouldn't be paid, but I more or less agree with this estimate." And Allstate said, "We're not paying that. Find ways to not pay that." Literally told him that. And he's a whistleblower. He came out and said all this and risked his job. And they literally told him, "We're not going to pay that. You should minimize it." Then it went to court and it got to this point. So if you think that we as public adjusters delay claims, it's 100% myth. There's no way. The claims get delayed. It's a process. I mean, there's a book written about it. Delay, defend, and deny. They're going to delay as long as they can because they know that eventually people cave in and accept the settlement. And if you don't, you can buy the book. It's a great book to read, and it's the attorney that took Allstate and their system to court and exposed all their slides regarding that process. They know if they can delay it, most people will just, like 95% of people will accept settlement, 5% of people will hire a public adjuster or an attorney. So yes, we're not delaying it. Why would we want to delay a claim? We definitely don't want to delay payment for our clients or for ourselves. We want to make this as quickly as possible. Again, the delay, if they wanted to pay a claim right away, they would have. Why would they, why would you have to get us involved? It's obviously there's a delay. They're going to delay it anyways because it's better for their bottom dollar. So.
Yeah, that's great to understand that if there are delays, a lot of times it is actually from the insurance company, right? Because they're kind of working through this process, right? And like you said, your incentives are aligned to help with a smooth, quick process. It's not like, and you've talked about how you work on contingency, meaning you don't get paid until the client gets paid, right?
Correct.
So if anything, you're trying to move that thing along as quick as possible to make sure that they're, again, indemnified, they're brought back to whole, but then you also can continue to run your business. Like any company out there, you rely on revenue to support your company, to pay your employees, do all the things that you need to do. So delaying the claim has no benefit to AllCity.
It has none. No, we want to, you want to present everything the right way. We're not trying to shortcut it and just hand in stuff to the insurance company with no supportive documents, or because that doesn't benefit us either. We want to take our time, build a case, and present everything the right way so then it gets settled. But then when it's in the hands of the insurance company, they'll sit on an estimate and review our estimate for 2 months. It has to go through one manager, then the second manager. Oh, you know what? We're going to send out an engineer. They were going to delay it anyways, right? So no, the only thing there is. The benefit of hiring a public adjuster outweighs any delay or anything else that the insurance company is going to do.
Yeah. And having somebody in your corner on your side that understands the math, that understands the process, and I'm assuming following up on these claims as well. Like you said, as soon as you're hired, you really kind of step into that role of being that primary contact and taking all of those calls and all those discussions and following up with the insurance company to make sure things get pushed through appropriately. So even if it is delayed on the insurance side, that you have somebody really pushing through, because if you're running a property, you need to go run that property management company and not be focused on what State Farm or Allstate or anyone else is doing.
Let's say we send in our documents today. Let's say just the structure itself. We built the estimate. We have our documents. We have our photo. We have everything built. We send it into the insurance company. Now our office is calling every other day to follow up on that. And now then there's emails and then there's calls again. And we have a CRM that our clients get to see what's happening. So then they can't say, well, who's called them? No, we've called every other day. We've sent emails. This is the claim process. This is how they're handling claims. So then our clients can see kind of what's going on. But yes, we do that because that's our business. But if you're a management company and now this gets added to your plate, like we hear from so many management companies, they're like, holy smokes, the burden you've taken off us, I don't have time for this. Like, this is not in my wheelhouse. They just threw this on me and now I'm supposed to handle it. It's every claim is so different and it's handled on its own merit. The policy is different. Even if it's the same insurance, it might be an older policy, a newer policy, and you have to interpret it. Then the damage is always different. As someone that's never handled it, and for us, after all these years in business, it's never the same. It's never a dull moment. It's always changing, and we always have to keep up with the policies and everything else that's happening in construction and building codes. And now you throw this on someone that's never dealt with this. That's a lot.
It is a lot. Absolutely. Well, Andy, as we kind of debunk that final myth and kind of turn towards the end of the episode here, what else do our listeners really need to understand about the claims process and adjusters? Maybe that we haven't talked about today, maybe we haven't maybe we've hinted on, but we haven't really dove into. What do they really need to understand?
The most important thing is the initial claim call and the initial claim, like the first 10, 30 days. That's so crucial to the claim that people don't understand. And the words you use can jeopardize the entire claim. It can delay the claim and then ultimately deny it. So that first 30 days of what you do, who you talk to, what you say, for example, that's why when we're hired after the claim or after months into the claim, we're playing investigative. We're a detective now trying to find out, what did you say? Oh, I did tell him that this actually wasn't the fire. This was just all this stuff that then just hurts the claim and then hurts the insured themselves. So the first 30 days is so crucial. Setting the reserves is another one. What happens is when you're talking to insurance and they say, Andy, how big is this loss? Well, it's going to be $500,000. Okay, because if their initial adjuster came out and said, it's only $200,000 loss. Well, now they set the reserves at 200. Anything over that 200,000 reserve is going to go through like 5 managers. It's going to go through the biggest scrutiny to get anything paid. So there's just a lot that happens, and we encourage everyone to call or have a public adjuster on your team. And if you don't, just call one and just have him review it before you call it in. And if you do call it in right away, have one call him the next day and have him review it and make sure that there's someone that's going to handle, that's going to say the right stuff, that's going to avoid investigation and examinations under oath and all this other stuff.
So the takeaway there is don't wait until a claim is in a bad spot and it's delayed. You really should be talking to and working with an adjuster on an ongoing basis. Have a relationship with one. So when that loss happens, if that loss happens, you've got somebody that step in. It's almost like knowing who to call if you need a lawyer.
Correct. 100%, Joe. So if you're one of our clients, for example, we're talking all the time. And if you have a new property, we're looking at the new policy and making sure that everything's good. And as soon as something happens, we're stepping in. And maybe we'll tell you, don't file a claim. There's only $7,000 worth of damage max, your deductible's $3,000. So you'll have $4,000 left over. You still have to pay us. But even if you didn't, there's just not enough and worth to file that claim on this property. It's older property. Now the insurance company is going to come in. They're going to take a bunch of photos. Now other carriers are going to see those photos and they say, it's an old property. We're going to raise that premium. We're not even going to insure Joe no more.
That's right.
All those things. And again, when I look at all this stuff, I don't look at it just from I'm a public adjuster, also an investor, also, a landlord, also was a contractor. So I look at it from those aspects. So I see it from the other side as well. And I think about that. Well, I don't want to put Joe in a bad position, file a claim for him. And all of a sudden the insurance comes out, takes pictures, pays him a couple bucks, but now they drop him because he's got a really old property that probably is going to be hard to insure. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, you have to have that longer term view on this whole process. So, if our audience is listening to this and this is resonating, which I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people because insurance is such an important part of the protection of the property and how we continue to operate long term. If they want to learn more about AllCity Adjusting and really just public and private adjusters, period, what's a good way for them to learn more and get educated on this whole industry?
So if you Google AllCity Adjusting, you will find a ton of content, videos of how to handle your claim or tips on handling your claim. A lot of educational on our YouTube platform. We have so much educational videos for people that want to handle their own claims, which we don't encourage, but just give tips and kind of or stuff to look out for. Just a lot of on there that. But if they want to contact us, they can contact 844 My Adjuster is directly our number. For your listeners, I'll leave everyone my number. If anyone wants to call, has questions, wants to text, I have no problem. I will do that for your listeners. It's going to be 708-655-4186. And they can call me directly. If they have questions regarding policy, claim language, previous claims, I'm more than happy to discuss anything with anyone.
Yeah, that's great. And you had mentioned earlier, you'll do reviews of insurance policies. You'll
Gladly.
Make sure people are set up well. And again, I'm sure it's a benefit to you as well, because if they end up using your company, they at least have a good policy in place that you can go and actually fight for them as well. So it's a great service, and I'm glad that you do that for free because I think that's really where most people need to start.
It's a relationship thing. It makes me feel good, even if you've never used us, Joe, or you'll never have a claim, to review your policy and say, hey, there's a lot of stuff you need, or you're not even covered for this. Just that we made you aware of it makes us feel good. Okay, at least we know that Joe knows that, hey, he doesn't have coverage here, and if something happens, he has coverage here and stuff like that. So
that's perfect. And we will make sure we drop some links into the show notes so people can easily find you there. Obviously, the cell phone number there, you can contact Andy directly, which is great. We appreciate you doing that for our listeners. Well, Andy, I really appreciate you taking some time and visiting the office and the recording studio today.
Yeah, thank you again for having me here. You guys have an amazing facility. Thank you for the tour. If I had to work here, I'd say I'd take a job here. It's a really nice facility.
We'll give you an application before you leave.
Thanks, Joe.
Well, thanks again. And thanks to our audience for listening in to another great episode. And until next time, keep going beyond rent.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Beyond Rent. If you enjoyed this podcast, spread the word on social media and with your peers in the industry. To be notified when more episodes are released, subscribe using your favorite podcast player. Beyond Rent is brought to you by Rent Manager Property Management Software. Learn more about Rent Manager's industry-leading software solutions at rentmanager.com. Until next time, keep going beyond rent.